Okay. Welcome to the June meeting of the Citizen Involvement Council. I'd like to remind everyone, guests included, to sign in on the attendance sheets located in the back of the room. Our membership is comprised of up to 2 representatives from each of the 12 recognized neighborhoods in Oregon City. We meet the first Monday of each month to share information and hear presentations regarding projects and activities happening within and around our city. We are happy to have this exchange and to take the information we receive back to our individual neighborhoods so all our citizens can be well informed. The procedure we follow for individual comments is this. Those members sitting in front of an electronic monitor can request to speak by pressing the button on their screen, adding them to the queue. Those members who are not sitting in front of a monitor will tip their place card, and Katie will add them to the queue in the order they express interest. We do have a time allotted in the agenda for citizen comments. In order to speak, please fill out a comment card. These cards are available in the back of the room, and once completed, should be handed in to Katie, our staff liaison. Please remember that comments are to be directed to the chair, and as a general practice, CIC members do not engage in discussion with those making citizen comments. It is our desire to hear from everyone who wants to contribute to the discussion, members and guests alike. In order to facilitate this, we allow 3 minutes per contributor. After that, we need to give someone else a chance to talk. So let's get started. Barbara Rankin, who has graciously volunteered to step in and take our attendance and minutes while we are short a secretary, will now call the roll.
Tony Yu. Linda Basinger. Here. Dennis Anderson.
Here.
Amy Wilhite.
Here.
Kathy Hogan.
Here.
Tom O'Brien.
Is excused.
Is excused. Steve Anderson.
Here.
Faith Leith.
Here.
Kurt Summer.
Here.
In place of Alice. Is
Welcome.
that correct? Welcome. Rita Mills.
Here.
Bob LaSalle.
Here.
Harris Gwynn.
Here.
Karen Morey.
Here.
Gary Fergus.
Here.
Welcome.
Bill McConnell.
Here.
Welcome.
And Todd Last.
Here.
And Brian Boyce.
Here.
Is there anyone on the panel that I haven't got on my list? No? Okay.
I think we're all
Thank you.
good. And we have 3 new members tonight. We welcome you all, and if you have questions, just ask your neighbor or wave your arms or something. For our guest speakers, we have 2 presentations. The first one will be about the sanitary sewer master plan, and I understand that we have some guests here to represent that, right? Come on up and introduce yourselves, please. If you have a confusing name, spell it out for us.
That's the hint.
Oh, unique.
So, hi everyone, I'm Eric Wargren. I'm a project engineer at the city, and I've been working with Jim Hansen. Jim Hansen's a consultant for the sanitary sewer master plan. He's with Brown and Caldwell, and they've done an outstanding job. It's been a lot of work. We've done a lot of investigation and got some results we wanted to present to you today. And first off, I just wanted to mention, for some of you that don't know, we've got in the city owns 148 miles of gravity pipe. We've got 12 major pump stations and 6 miles of force main. So there's a significant amount of work that we did looking at all that. Also, the last time that we've had an update to the sanitary sewer master plan has been 11 years. It was in 2003, so we're definitely due for that. And I'll just quickly go through the agenda and then pass it over to Jim. He's going to start out talking about the process and kind of the steps that we took to get there, to get here where we are today. He's going to go over some of the design standards and look at some of the, we're going to explain some of the system deficiencies that we found looking at the 10-year future condition. And also the big news is to understand some of the capital program, some of the improvements that we found that we'll be working on for the next few years, and then we'll talk about the next steps. I think we should wait for the
I didn't want to do it while you're talking.
Oh, okay.
Okay, while that's firing up there, thank you very much. My name is Jim Hansen. I'm with Brown and Caldwell Consultants here in the Portland area, and mostly what I get involved in is infrastructure type projects, including master plans and designs. I'm here to talk to you about the master planning process. We build a model so that we can understand what the flows are in the sewer system. And from that, we can identify what sewers may need to be replaced, or if we're looking at new sewers, what size they would be. And to build an effective model, we need to have some flow monitoring data. So we first, back in January of 2012, implemented a flow monitoring program that went out to monitor the sewers at some key locations to see what the flows actually were during particularly wet weather and also dry weather events. We then went and developed a hydraulic model. This is actually a hydrologic and hydraulic model that uses information from the city's pipe inventory data in terms of pipe size and depth and slope of pipe. We use information from the city's land use and demographics so that we can understand the type of development, the density at which it's going to be developed or is developed, whether it's commercial, residential, or industrial. We then incorporate into the model the data that we collected during the flow monitoring, and we calibrate the model. And basically calibration is you build the model, you run it, and then you adjust it so that it matches the flows that you actually measured when you were out in the field. So we have a high degree of confidence that the model is actually predicting what's going on out in the sewers. In addition to the flow monitoring data that I mentioned, we also used existing data from the city's pump stations. They have flow runtime data, and that also helped us with the calibration. And we have incorporated into the model both pump stations and force mains as well. And this is a big step forward for the city because the previous model was a simple spreadsheet, and that can get you some information, but it's not nearly as accurate as a true hydraulic model that you now have for the system. We then use that model to help us really focus on two things. One is what's happening today and where would we predict that there would be problems. So that's our existing condition scenario. And then we look out into the future at a planning horizon, often associated with like a full build-out condition, to see what the flows will be like in 10, 15, or 20 years, because we need to start planning today for those future events. The design standards. This is real simple. We model storm events, and you might wonder, well, why are you looking at storm events? Because I'm talking about a sanitary sewer master plan. But if you're not aware of that, rainwater gets into the sanitary sewers. And in fact, in most places, when it rains, the water that's in your sanitary sewer can be 3, 4, 5, even 10 times what the sanitary flow would be because they leak. And we call that infiltration and inflow. So water will get into our sanitary sewers from storm events. DEQ requires that we do a 5-year event. So once in 5-year storm event is what we look at. But that's the absolute minimum required by DEQ. And we looked at and have adopted, or approved, I should say, the 10-year event. So it's an event that we would see perhaps once in 10 years. It's a bigger storm, and as you can see with the table, it's associated with 3.5 inches of rainfall occurring over a 24-hour period. And we chose the longer, or the 10-year event with the higher rainfall. It basically adds another level of protection to all the citizens, because we just want to keep the water out of your basements. We then, as I mentioned, modeled the conditions, the existing conditions, see what's going to happen today and where we're having problems, and confirming that with what our operations folks are telling us. And then we look at the future conditions. I want to go into some of the results from our 10-year future condition modeling. Okay, so this is a map of the city, and it shows the red lines are the lines that we're predicting the pipes to surcharge. And what we mean by surcharging is there's more water in the pipe than the pipe can hold. And as a result of that, the water backs up. Now, most of the time, that's not a problem. But when it backs up to the point that it starts coming out of manholes, or if it backs up to the point that it's getting into someone's basement, that's a problem, and we want to avoid that. So the red areas are areas that we have identified under this 10-year event that we would see surcharging. If you look closely, you'll see a little yellow circle with a black dot in it. We're actually predicting at those locations the flow will come out onto the ground surface. It's that bad. Fortunately, there's just a couple of those, and we'll go into this a little bit closer here with the next figure. So this is kind of the north end of town. You can see up at the very northeast, there's just a single pipe up there in Holcomb Boulevard that is predicted to surcharge under the 10-year event. 12th Street, 13th Street, Division Street, Lynn Avenue. We're also identifying that the Canamall pump station is undersized for the future event as well.
Kanema?
Kanema.
Kanema.
I knew I would say that wrong. Sorry about that.
It looks okay. It looks okay.
Okay. Another thing that you can see from this particular figure are some areas that are currently not in the city. And this is the Park Place concept area up in the eastern northeast part of the city. And we have done some initial sizing of what the sewers would look like in that area and are showing those sewers. So the blue lines are areas that would be built in the future to serve new areas brought into the city. There's a few lines shown inside the city that are currently without service or with septic service that we're also identifying as future projects. So on the south side of the city, there's a few more challenges down here. We've got a few more pump stations that will need upgrades to handle that future flow. We have a number of pipes both inside the city and outside the city that will be required so that those areas could develop. Again, those are the blue lines. You can see the Hazelwood area in red. That's an existing problem area that's identified. And the South End concept area as well as the Beaver Creek concept areas are shown as well. We have some blue lines on there for areas that are currently on septic. If you're on septic, it's assumed that at some point in time the septic systems will most likely fail, and at that point you'll want to tie into the city system. So those projects that we're looking at, they translate into costs, and we can categorize those by sewer upgrades that are needed for hydraulic reasons. Those are pipes that are undersized and need to be increased in diameter so they can handle those future flows. In addition, we have pump station and force mains. I identified a few for you earlier. Again, needing to be upgraded so that they can handle those future flows. We have also what's called an R&R program, which is rehab and replacement program for the sewers. Some of the city's oldest sewers date back to the early 1900s. And that's well beyond what's considered the useful life of many sewers. I mean, we put sewers in the ground and think they'll last forever. They don't, just like roads. They eventually wear out. The city is implementing a sewer inspection program to find out what the condition of those sewers are, and based upon what they've seen so far, we've been able to project what a rehab program ought to look like for the city in the long term. In addition, I have another term up here, I&I abatement. That's inflow and infiltration. So that's that stormwater that I was talking about getting into your sewer. This is a big deal because that takes up capacity out of your sewer. And there's a lot of focus from the national level, the EQ level, and even more locally at Wes and Tri-City, looking at the I&I in our systems and looking to do what we can to identify where the I&I is coming in, and that's the investigation part of this, and then ultimately implementing projects to help reduce the amount of I&I in the system. So those are the major components of what will roll up into what's considered the capital program. And what we're showing here is basically an annual cost for the next 12 years. And you can see it in years 1 through 4, 5 through 8, and 9 through 12. So the sewer upgrades, that is basically to address those deficiencies that we've identified under existing conditions, are basically going to need to be funded at about $785,000 a year for about the next 4 years, and then we will have caught up with those immediate deficiencies that we're aware of. Pump station upgrades will occur over a longer period of time, and you can see there's some initial monies in the first 4 years, and then it will look like it'll probably drop back to about $100,000 a year in years 5 through 12. We're going to start off a little slower on the rehab and replacement program, but that will build up after about the first 4 years into a sizable program, and basically trying to get the sewers up into a more acceptable condition. It's like a lot of things. If you take care of it before it gets too bad, it's cost you less money to work on it and fix it now than it will be to fix it later. We see the I&I investigations and abatement as being a long-term program funded at about $182,000 a year. Ultimately, there may come out of the I&I investigation the need to replace private service laterals. So that's the pipe connecting your home to the sewer. Even though it's your individual, it's each resident's pipe, many studies have shown that if you replace those sewers along with the main sewer, or you do rehab on the main sewers, you do a much better job of reducing the amount of I&I that gets into the system. Because we can fix all the main lines, and what happens is your water table will rise, and it'll find those service laterals, and if they're defective, the water will just go in there. So it's like chasing something. If you chase it from one area, it'll go somewhere else if you're not careful. So that's something to be determined, and at this point, I don't know whether that's something that will be adopted, but it's something to look at. So for the next 12 years, we're looking at about a $1.5 million program for, say, the first 4 years of that 12-year period, and then it'll ramp up to about 1.6, and then later about 1.9 per annum. The next steps in the process, and it's already underway, is the city has hired another consultant, the FCS group, to take a look at our recommendations in terms of the improvements and take that information and update the city's rates and system development charges. And ultimately, they'll make a recommendation that the city will want to adopt in terms of rates and SDCs for helping to fund the program and the capital needs of the program. Finally, from a process point of view, there's the adoption process, of which this meeting is in fact part of that. Public process, Department of Land Conservation and Development and Metro, they have notices that we have a master plan that's been completed. And then this open house that we had earlier tonight, as well as future Planning Commission and City Commission hearings for on the road for final adoption. And finally, for the program, city's going to be looking a lot more carefully at the I&I that gets into the system. That'll mean additional TV inspections, some smoke testing, more flow monitoring. The city will cooperate with the Tri-City I&I study that just started this spring. They're going to be looking at I&I throughout the entire Tri-City service area. Taking the existing capital program and refocusing funds on addressing those capacity deficiencies that have been identified, and then finally looking at adopting some new policies and regulations to help the overall sanitary program, such as prohibiting roof drain downspout connections. Again, that's another way that stormwater gets into the sanitary sewer. And looking more closely at that private sewer lateral replacement program that I mentioned. And that is it. Do we have any questions, please? Be glad to answer.
Yeah, to what degree?
Whoa, Ryan, let's,
Oh. Yeah,
Did you
he
re-
just nodded at me, so.
okay. We'll request that,
Diane,
get
push,
on your request.
all right, there we go.
Okay.
All right, let's go in order.
Kathy?
Okay, could we have the map of the one of South End and the Parish Pump Station? 'Cause I had a couple questions on that. I gotta- so I can see it. Okay, on the Parish Road,
Okay.
so are you taking into account anything with the new development that's happening at this moment? Have they researched it, because there's gonna be 27, probably, 8, could be another 100 homes in that area.
Is the area that you're referring to, is it?
By the blue line, yeah, that is gonna be another pump station in that, those developments are gonna require another pump station?
So let me ask that differently. Are the homes or the area that you're talking about, is it in the South End concept area? or is
Nope,
it
it's just
currently in
right
the-
on the other side where the blue and.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
To the east.
It's Canton, the property right now, and 3 other properties have been approved for R8.
So that area that's to the east of Parish Road has been looked at, and those flows are to flow towards Parish.
Yes,
Where the dividing line is between Parish and Pease Road, I don't remember off the top of my head, but I believe the
oh,
area.
Parish Road is right there by all that, right
I
in
believe
there.
all of that's going over to Parish Road, and
So that's gonna have to have a pump down at the end to go over
I
to
think
there?
the very lower corner there where you see the red box.
Yeah,
the
that's
blue
what I was
line,
wondering.
For that area to have sewer service, it will probably have to have a pump station.
Because they
there.
already have, they're pumping. See where the red 2 dots are?
Yes.
There's a housing development with 42 homes in there, and it all goes downhill, and it's going across Central Point Road to Parish Road, right at this moment. So where do they put the pump to pump all that across the street and down the hill to the pump station?
Let me jump in here. So the area that you're talking about across from your home,
Yes.
right, on Central Point Road, is all slated for development.
Yeah.
I believe it's R8 now.
Yeah,
is what it's
and
been
they're
zoned.
doing it.
And all of that has been, majority of that, I think there's one leg that goes towards Pease Road Pump Station, but the majority of that area is going to drain towards the existing Parish Road Pump Station, and that Parish Road Pump Station has the capacity to handle that growth.
Okay, but
Okay.
I'm wondering where is the pump to pump it though? Because everything else is downhill.
The little pump, yeah, you have a pointer?
Yeah, go ahead. That would,
I tried.
So this pump station right here?
no.
That's a non-existing pump station. That's something that would be built in the future.
And would it,
And they would pump it up into the White Lane sewer, and it would eventually get to the Parish Road pump
okay.
station.
So
So
there's a
just
pump
like-
down in the sewer pipes? Because you can't see the pump station to where they're pumping it right now.
I don't
It's an
know.
actual building,
There's a
but-
Parish Road pump station's got a building over it. It's a wet well. It's a big facility. I mean, if you
Well,
if
they-
you live on Parish Road, you know what that looks like.
Yeah, okay. So how is that on that road? I mean, I ride my bike. I can go and I go downhill.
Well, Kathy,
And then I go
we can,
uphill.
We can look at that specific
I mean, it's
question in
pretty
more
deep.
detail.
Well, I was just wondering how it's going to affect other homes, and is it going to get backed up? I mean, how the capacity is going to hold.
There's no
it.
surcharge predicted in this area, even
None
at
at all.
the largest design storm, and even at the full build out.
Okay, and then when you're doing this upgrade, does it come offline, or is this sewer still going to be pumping and taking all that?
It depends. And generally speaking, we like to try to, when we do an upgrade, we like to try to design it in such a way that usually there's more than one pump, so that we try to do it in a way where the pump station always has capacity.
I mean, because it looks like a septic tank wouldn't be too bad if you're going to turn it off, because where does it go then? They
Well,
can't live in their
You
home?
can't ever turn it off. So
Okay,
would
that's what
happen
I'm
is,
saying.
If we in fact had to take all the pumps out and replace them, the typical approach would be to bring in a standby pump, and it'd come in on wheels, and they'd roll it up next to the station and connect it, and it would pump while the main station's being
Okay.
worked on.
So nobody would be out of service because
Oh, absolutely
they'd
not.
be keeping this door open.
No, we have to keep the sewers running all the
Okay,
time.
and then at the Parish Road pump station, there is a wetlands. They have that sewer pipe going through the wetlands. Do they take the water and test it for the quality, that there's no leakage through that pipe going across towards the South End Road?
Again, I would say we don't typically test it, Kathy, but we do pay attention to how much the difference is between wet weather flow and summer dry weather flow. So in that particular pump station, I don't remember what our rate of inflow was, but I don't remember that one being heavy. And typically the way we would test that would be to TV inspect it with a camera. So put a
Okay,
camera in the
so you would
pipeline.
put a camera to see if it's,
Yeah.
if there's something going on?
Yeah, if
Because
it's
I
got
worry about the
leakage.
wetlands, the Little Beaver Creek going down into the Willamette River, that if that becomes contaminated, because like if you're replacing pipes in roads, you've got one in a wetland that has water in it.
Yeah, we don't want to dewater the wetlands, right? That's what you're
No,
saying. Yeah,
we don't wanna
We don't want to
contaminate
pump
the-
it either.
No, well, we don't want to, well, yeah, but we don't want to contaminate the wetlands.
Oh, I see what you're saying. You don't
Yes.
want sewer to get out.
No,
Okay.
why, I don't care about sewer. I care about not contaminating and eating the fish from down in the falls. Thank you.
Okay. Steve?
Thank you guys for taking care of our nasty stuff. You say we have some really old sewer. What is that material made of?
Most of the older pipe in the system is all an early type of concrete or even a clay pipe. And we typically in the industry assume that a sewer pipe is good for 80 to 100 years. So when you start getting pipes, really once pipes get to about age 50, you start to be concerned about them. And it depends on a lot of factors. It depends on the quality of the material, depends on the contractor who put it in and how good a job that he did in bedding the pipe and giving it a good backfill and all those factors. Because we see pipes, I've done inspections for City of Portland for years, and they have some pipes that are 100 years old that are in great shape, whereas they have pipes that are 40 years old that are falling apart. So it really is, age is a factor, but it's not the only factor.
Soil movement has a lot to do with it
It
too.
does, exactly. Yeah. That's why bedding of it is an important aspect of keeping a good pipe, good condition.
All those factors are factored in during the repair and replacement.
Basically, when the engineers will look at doing a rehab or replacing the pipe, they'll go out and take another look at the soils and the water table and design accordingly, yes.
Thank you.
Todd?
Could you put up your cost slide again? So just a question, you were talking about the R&R program, that it makes sense to do things as soon as possible because you delay potential costs if you delay it. But I'm looking at your cost things, and it looks like the main repairs are delayed till 9 years out. So I was just kind of curious how that came about, and was there any potential savings if they were to remove some of the costs up front to years 1-4?
No, that's a good question. We look at sewer condition, and the city's got some pipes that are not in great shape. I mean, for the most part, most of the sewers are in just fine shape, but there's a few that have been identified as needing repair in the not too distant future. We didn't see the need to front load this and put all the effort in immediately, because generally the degradation goes pretty slow. And We also were looking at the overall program and trying to find a balance here in terms of how we could, progress over time. So we're doing some of those immediate sewer upgrades that are needed for hydraulic reasons first, because they're absolutely an immediate concern, and then we're just deferring into year 5 some of the larger rehab projects. So I don't think there's that much degradation you're going to see in the next 4 years, but we need to get them on the schedule and start planning for them.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Oh, Brian.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what is the status of separating storm runoff sewers and sanitary sewers in Oregon City?
Well, the city has a separated sewer system.
Okay.
Unlike Portland, that has a true combined system where, for example, they purposely have catch basins and storm inlets and roof drains and everything connected to their sewer. This city, Oregon City's system is a true separated system, so you have storm pipes and sanitary pipes. But regardless of that, all sanitary systems, because of cracks in pipes, separation at joints, cracks in manholes, they get infiltration and stormwater into them. And the focus of the I&I investigation will be to identify where is the most of that I&I getting into the system, so that the city can develop a cost-effective program at reducing that flow. The reality is you'll never get it all out. It'd be impossible. But if it's really egregious, outrageous flow coming in, then those are areas that we'd like to go out and fix, because that'll restore some capacity to the system.
Okay.
Karen?
Back on that 10-year slide, okay, so John, I've sat through plenty of stormwater, sewer, you name it, presentations, and I never stopped to think about language. That one slide where you've got all the housing that has different elevations, and you've got pump stations at like 3 points. Is it gravity to the pump station? And what does the pump station actually do?
Well, generally the way our sanitary sewer systems work is it all goes downhill. And so when you turn the water on and it goes down the drain and it goes out into the street, it'll find the sewer, it goes to the sewer, and by gravity it'll flow downhill. And that's the way all your systems work. Unfortunately, we live on hilly areas, and you can't get it to the treatment plant by gravity a lot of the time. So it'll flow down to a low area, and so this is a localized area, and that's where we put the pump stations. So if we had a topo map, and we don't here, but if I just looking at this, I know, but where those pump stations are located, those are at low places. Excuse me. So each of the pump stations you see there, they're all located at low places. And they're sited in such a way that the local gravity sewers that are in place to serve the community will go to that low point, and at the pump station, it goes into a large, what we call a wet well, which is basically like a large manhole. And in that wet well, or adjacent to that well, there'll be pumps. And the pumps will come on once the water reaches a certain level and pump it back up the hill to a gravity sewer where it can continue to flow by gravity towards its ultimate destination, which is the treatment plant. So through a series of gravity and then coming downhill and then pumps pumping it back up to the next hill, you can take it ultimately to the treatment plant. I'm working for a community on the Oregon coast right now where it's just a very long city, and it's just a series of creeks, hills, and there's flow at the north end of the city. It has to go through about 5 pump stations before it can get to the treatment plant. It's up, down, up, down.
Okay, thank you.
Linda?
Who is going to pay for this and how the cost will be?
Want me to take that one? Well, if you're talking the study itself, this work that we paid Brown and Caldwell to do, that's paid for out of a combination of things. So your sewer, well, your utility bill includes a line item for sewer. It includes a line item for sewer treatment and a sewer collection. And a portion of that sewer collection money we used to help pay for this study. We also used what we call system development charges. So for new or redevelopment of properties in Oregon City, when they come forward with a redevelopment or a new development, they get charged a system development charge. And that system development funding is generally used to pay for capacity improvements. So pump station isn't big enough, we need it bigger, pays for that additional pump station capacity. Or if a pipeline's too small, it pays for that as well. So for the design work, we used a combination. I think we split it 50-50 between rates and SDCs. For all these improvements that are coming, that are shown in the cost per year scenario, a good majority of that's going to come out of rates, because a lot of our needs aren't necessarily growth related. Some of them are, especially those pipelines that are shown as being too small or filling up. But a lot of the stuff with regard to rehab and rehabilitation, that's existing pipes that we all use, that were paid for through various forms over the years, and it's just time to replace them. So the options that we have are rates or SDCs. Developers build the new pipes, but even new pipes get old, and some of the pipes that we have were built by the development community. There's possibly some loans, but even loans would be paid back through rates. So there's not too many pots of money to pull from for utility improvements.
Okay. Harris?
On the one slide we saw there, it was about disconnecting the downspouts on the private homes so they're not part of the storm water drain system. Now I believe the city of Portland gives you a break on your property tax if you disconnect your downspouts. It's not much. I think it's $25 a year. And but is there any possibility for an incentive for the homeowners to disconnect that? I myself have been considering, you could make a rain garden.
Yeah. I don't know if Portland gives you a break on property tax. They might give you a break on your sewer bill. But that's a great question, because one of the policy decisions we're going to have to make is, not only how do we afford it, but what policy decisions should the city be making with regard to roof drain disconnects? Should there be an incentive for that? The other one is lateral replacements. A lot of agencies recognize that you fix the main lines and you fix even a portion of the lateral, but if you don't take it all the way to the house, that rainwater just finds its way into those leaky spots too. And more often than not, our mains might have some leakage to them, but it's usually the laterals that were built, to a lower standard that are failing. So the question is well, who should pay for that? If we've had a property owner that's got a really leaky service lateral, we'd want it fixed. Is there an incentive program to help with that? So those are good policy decisions that we're going to find ourselves having to make.
Okay, Rita?
I'm a little bit familiar with a company called Gelco, and they line sewer lines, and I'm wondering if that's something that would be possible. I would think it would be a little bit more cost effective, because you really wouldn't have to do as much taking soil. I live in one of those 100-year-old houses, so I don't know if the city's ever taken that into consideration, or if they would. It seems like it would be a little more cost effective.
Go ahead. Anyone else can answer that.
We're looking at a project right now on Main Street. We've got a sewer line between 11th and 12th on Main Street that originally we were thinking about replacing the line, but it had other complications, and so we, again, video inspect that line, and we do a lot of investigation beforehand to make sure we're using the right approach. And there's some certain things, if the pipe joints are offset or if it's in bad enough shape, there's certain conditions that won't allow us to line the pipe, but it is a cheaper alternative, and we try to use it when we can, because it's also less disruptive. It can be done from manhole to manhole, so it is a great idea, and we use that tool when we can.
Thank you.
That's a tool that more and more cities are using to greater extent. We're seeing a lot more rehab. That's part of what we call rehab as opposed to replacement. And often, just for a ballpark number, it's about 60% the cost of replacing it. So there's definitely a cost savings if you can rehab it. But you can't rehab everything, unfortunately.
In the interest of time, we're going to cut off any, we'll get to everybody that's got their name up, but we'll stop it there. Faith, where are you?
Oh, right here. Disconnecting rain spouts. I'd never heard of doing that before. What? You mean taking the ones down that come down the side of your house so that the water just flows off your roof?
No, well, not exactly that. Disconnecting the rain spouts that are currently connected to the sanitary sewer.
So it's not private property stuff.
And I would estimate that there's a few of them around that when they were originally installed, were installed connected to the sanitary sewer, and they probably still are. So in certain areas, perhaps even certain neighborhoods, depending on when it was built and whether there had been any attempt to modify that in the last 20 or 30 years, certain areas may have the rain spouts connected to the sanitary sewer. Now, if you have a storm sewer in the area, what you'd want to do is connect into the storm sewer rather than the sanitary.
The water flows out there.
There may be some areas where there isn't a storm sewer, and that's a challenge because we have to figure out what to do with that water if we don't put it into the sanitary sewer.
Okay. Thank you.
Gary?
A couple of questions. Does your study involve upgrading the stormwater system also? Is that going to be needed to be upgraded to meet
our particular
is that something that might be done at the same time?
That's a good, fair question. Our particular study is focused entirely on the sanitary system. I don't know where you are relative to an update to the stormwater master plan.
So the way these studies typically go is we look at each utility individually, but we realize that by the more water, every drop of water, especially if it's rainwater, that we take off of the sanitary system is likely going to need to go into the storm system. So the next master plan, we've done our transportation system plan, we've done our water master plan, this is our sewer master plan, and last but not least will be our stormwater master plan.
So if they, my concern is if they go down, they tear up one, repair it, put in new pipes, and then 2 years later they come down, one, repair it, put in new stormwater pipes. Is that a possibility that could happen? If it is, then my other question is, if these pipes are 100 years old, was there any thought in the beginning to include into the rates replacement? So are there any funds that were placed for replacing these pipes, knowing at that point that they're going to, in a certain amount of time, they're going to need to be replaced? Or are we starting all over and for this, whatever, $20-some million over 12 years, whatever that totals, is that all coming new, or is there money from 100 years ago that was set aside?
You wish.
Man, I wish there was. We're a historic town, but we don't keep our money around very long.
It's a serious thing.
You're right, it is a serious thing.
We're looking at now all of this money all of a sudden. I mean,
well, I wouldn't say all of a sudden. We're one of the other pieces that we haven't talked about is after we do the sewer master plan, we'll do a rate and an SDC study.
So all of our rates will go up.
They may go up. That's correct. That's one of the challenges when looking at a system. I mean, I would say cities, and Oregon City isn't the only one in this situation, do tend to kick the can down the road when it comes to setting aside for replacement of infrastructure. And Oregon City's not alone there. I would say that Oregon City has done a good job of taking care of infrastructure. And we try not to build a boulevard that we later have to tear up. But I wouldn't say that that's never happened before. I just know that we work pretty hard at trying to, at least when it comes to condition. Now, some of the information that we learned about the capacity problems that we had. So we didn't necessarily know we had capacity problems in most of these areas. But if that's kind of been new information for us. And for the most part, I don't see anything that we've invested a lot of dollars in the street that we're going to have to tear up to fix. But what we typically look at is condition. So if we're going to go out and do a pavement or a boulevard project, we try and look at the condition of those pipes, and if they need repair and we can afford to repair them, we do. So I don't think money's been wasted. I do think that generally the public is supportive of utilities, but there's a limit to that. And the city walks a pretty fine line in trying to adopt rates that the public will maybe grumble about but accept. And this isn't going to happen overnight. These projects are going to take a while. That's why we're trying to program them in. I think that's one of the reasons why Todd's question about why not do all this up front as opposed to waiting till it's later. Sometimes there's a benefit to doing it up front. Other times we just kind of have to look at what the community is willing to accept, if it's a rate increase, or can we get it covered under our existing rates by borrowing against that. But those are things that are actually soon on our commission agenda for will be our rate and SDC study. So that's coming. I don't know that we're going to have rate increases to afford this, but I suspect there will be need for that. No different than your wastewater treatment plant. Wastewater treatment plant rates are going to go up as well, and it's just not as easy as it used to be. Back in the day when they built these things, they were, they did it a lot differently than we require today. Now the public wants to be involved. The public wants to be notified. They want to, they got to get through there before they just kind of build them. They didn't take in safety measures into account. Now, safety first. So it's not as cheap as it used to be to build sewers, or any utility for that matter.
I had a question when you talked about the Tri-City, that you're going to try to hook in with that investigation. What is the Tri-City? Who is that?
The Tri-City Service District. John, maybe you should touch that better than I.
So our wastewater treatment plant down along the Clackamas River is a wastewater treatment plant that's managed by Water Environment Services. So Water Environment Services is an organization under the county umbrella, right? So the county provides the staff for Water Environment Services, and they manage the wastewater treatment plant. But they do that as there's really two districts: the Tri-City Service District, which is West Linn, Gladstone, and Oregon City. And they all, we're one of the districts that contributes to that wastewater treatment plant, the costs associated with it. The other one is Clackamas County Service District 1, which is pretty much quite a bit of, I don't exactly know all their limits, but it goes to Sunnyside Road, it would Happy Valley, it goes out to, I think at some point in time the plan is to take it to Damascus. So they're also now a partner in the ownership and operation of that wastewater treatment plant. So Tri-City is the three cities. CCSD, number one, is several other cities to the north. And it's all there for wastewater treatment. CCSD, they also manage collection. In Oregon City, we manage our own collection system, all our pipes, all this kind of stuff that we're talking about. But in CCSD, that's managed through West. Their employees take care of the collection system.
So are they looking at Oregon City's pipes at the same time we are? Is that what, I guess I was not
okay, so
quite clear on that.
I
with the
didn't miss that,
Tri-County
but
thing.
I think there's some pipes in Oregon City that Tri-City owns, mostly the large interceptor pipes, and that has some history to it. When they built the wastewater treatment plant, they built that using federal funding, and as part of that, they included several of the trunk sewers that serve Oregon City, Gladstone, and West Linn. The pipeline that crosses the river to get to West Linn. We've got pipeline. You've probably seen it if you've seen the city from the Willamette side of the river. There's that pipeline that's kind of looks like it's attached to the seawall there. That's Tri-City's pipeline. They also own a pipeline that goes down Highway 213. Those facilities were either built during the time of the treatment plant or built during the time of Highway 213, and they're owned by Tri-Cities. And so part of the rate that we pay Tri-Cities for treatment includes the rate to maintain and maybe not replace. They may be similar to us, but definitely maintain those trunk lines.
Oh, okay. Kathy, you had one more question?
Oh, yeah. Okay, is this here presentation on the Oregon City website so that people that are watching us could go back and refer to it if they have questions?
It will be. Yeah,
Okay.
it's probably not right now, but
And then the last, what I was talking about is something you just said, is gravity flow. And I'm asking, okay, and it goes to, you said, the holding tank, and then it is pumped up, because that's the way it would have to be on White Lane and Parish Road to get across Central Point. There's must be a great big holding tank somewhere, and there's a pumping it then across.
Well, the Parish Road Pump Station, inside the building or underground, I should say,
Yeah.
is this wet well, which is the tank.
Yeah, but it has to get, because unless, which I know they buried the pipeline, sewer line, to go across Central Point, and half this room could be in it. That's how deep, and it has sunk in, and they've had to rebuild it up, and then the cul-de-sac. So because it goes downhill to Parish, White Lane, and the other road goes down, Payson's Lane or whatever it's called. It goes down towards New Creek, or not New Creek, but Beaver Creek, the canyon.
Kathy, I think this, if you have specifics, you can probably get with John.
Well, no, that's what I was wondering, but he had said it after I asked.
Okay.
That there is a pump, something pumping it from there.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, point of order. Could we introduce the people in the audience, and also Tony is now with us.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we got that Tony is here. I had not specifically planned, that's a change, to go through the audience and have everybody introduce themselves at this point in time.
Okay.
Okay, John? Our next item, Lewis is going to talk about the Lynn Avenue concept plan.
So I won't take much time because I know that took longer than planned. So I wanted to talk to you about the Lynn Leland Myers Road Corridor concept plan. That's a mouthful. And I've got a pretty hoarse voice, so if I cough, please forgive me for that. In fact, I'll run over there and grab my water if I need it. But so this is a study that the city's taken on. The concept plan is kind of in addition to what we have done with our transportation system plan. So it's like an amendment. It looks different. No, I'm good. It would be an amendment to the transportation system plan, assuming it's adopted. That's the first thing. So we were asked to look. There's several projects in the transportation system plan that are on these boulevards, and we tried to stitch those together so that we could create a bigger concept, look at it more holistically, and kind of look at some of the needs along the entire corridor. So this is underway right now. We've hired a firm, Wallace Engineering, to do the work for us. John Burrell's managing it. I'm pretty involved with it. And so we just kind of wanted to quickly go through this. The big push is for the open house, which there's a flyer on the back here. That open house is on Wednesday, June 11th from 5 to 7 p.m. And it's going to be in the Mount Pleasant School. It's going to be in the annex building closest to the intersection of Warner Parrott, Warner Milne, Leland, and Lynn Avenue. So everybody know where that spot is at? Okay. Share the word. We'll be there with most of these similar graphics and just have more opportunity to kind of have you discuss and share with us your opinions about things. So let's see if this is going to go. So some of these are fairly small, but the vicinity map is essentially showing. Oh, by the way, all this information is on the website, so you can find it there. So the project corridor starts in the McLaughlin neighborhood. It touches 5 neighborhoods, if I remember correctly. I think we've talked to all 5 neighborhoods already about this, but starts at 5th and Jackson and heads up the hill through segment. We've numbered our segments 1 through 4, so each color represents a different segment. So anyway, we've started a fair amount of public involvement. We've been to the Transportation Advisory Committee a couple times. We're just kind of doing that on a monthly basis. We've met with some of the property owners that are at the intersection of Leland Myers and Warner Milne, and talked to them a little bit about one of the proposals that's come out of this study, and I'll talk more about that in a little bit. We've talked to the school district, TriMet, and now we're talking to you folks. We've got a few more meetings coming up, and again, the June 11th public open house. Because this is a amendment to the transportation system plan, we're going to go through the public hearing process, which means we take it to the Planning Commission and the City Commission. We're going to take it to I don't know that we're required to, but we're going to take it to the Historic Review Board, and really anybody that's willing to listen. We really want to get a good community plan, and sometimes that just takes some effort on our part to get out in the community and kind of hear from them. So if there's something you'd like us to show up for, we'll give it a try. A lot of the work has been looked at what's existing in the field, so looking at ADA ramps, looking at connectivity, where the sidewalks exist now or don't exist. The corridor is essentially developed over the years as a county road and grown through some infill development, so there are some sidewalk pieces, but it's missing quite a bit. So some of the first work that we asked Wallace to do was just go out and inventory things. Look at ADA ramps, look at crosswalks, look at where bicycle lanes, for instance, exist or don't exist. And don't just look at the corridor, let's look at the side streets as well. So let's figure out, if people wanted to use this corridor to get to school or to get to work, and they worked in Oregon City or not, what facilities might already be in existence and where are some of the gaps. We're looking at some of the facilities that people might want to access, so churches, parks, schools, county buildings, those kind of things. Some of this, as neighborhood involved people, as a consultant, we kind of made them jump through that hoop just so they become really pretty familiar with the project as well. Just more of the same, just kind of putting all that stuff on layers and figuring out really kind of what the big picture looks like in terms of needs. We've come up with some concerns. This multimodal, that's kind of new. Biking and walking really is what multimodal means. I guess it could also include transit as well. Safety, stormwater. If we add a wider shoulder, for instance, how do we treat that stormwater? There's really very little stormwater treatment along much of this corridor because it was built before we had stormwater quality requirements. In some of the areas we definitely have some constrained right away, whether it be because of where a property line is or because of a steep slope or an existing retaining wall. It is a pretty tough corridor, especially that first segment, which is from 5th up to Park. So, we're not shooting for Boulevard here. We're shooting for safe places for people to walk and get up and down the hill. The only other pedestrian route is very steep and really not accessible to anybody with special needs or just needs in general. It's steep. So, and it's one of our only, we've got the Malala Avenue corridor, but it's really the only other corridor like this that pedestrians use in any frequency at all. So, again, that multimodal continues to show up. We want to make sure bicyclists and pedestrians feel safe. Whatever we can do to improve safety. There's a school that's not on the boulevard, but there's a lot of foot traffic that needs to cross there. So can we add pedestrian crossing improvements, pedestrian activated buttons that might flash and let people know that there's a pedestrian there? Improved connectivity and access. A lot of the neighborhoods along Malala Avenue, for instance, that you just can't walk down to Lynn Avenue. It's pretty. There might be a dead end street there. Might even have a gate. There's a couple places where the access to the schoolyard on the side or back have been gated. So, talk to the school district about opening those up. Can we would it make sense to put an actual paved pathway through the schoolyard? So, again, working on that, and then stormwater. So again, there's four segments. This one's by far the most difficult. Excuse me. Missing sidewalks. The travel lanes in some cases are very wide, in other cases not wide enough. We've talked a little bit about closure of Electric Avenue, so that we've seen some accident history there at that location. That's one of the higher accident locations. So we've talked about how we might do that and incorporate some stormwater improvements in that area as well. Let me grab my water. Some of the concepts we're talking about, there's actually, and by the way, there's a survey on the website which I'll talk about at the end. But we're trying to solicit feedback using that avenue as well. So if you haven't filled out the survey, please do so. But one of the questions we have is, for instance, this first segment, does it make sense for the pedestrian and bicycle route to be on a raised, wide sidewalk that would allow you as a bicyclist to pedal up at a speed that's probably not going to be too much faster than the pedestrian who's walking on the sidewalk, and still have that availability, and then know that on the downhill side, while that we still have a shoulder, more likely the bicyclist could be in the travel lane and share that lane with vehicles. Or does it make sense to have a striped bike lane with a narrow sidewalk on both sides of the road, and again, still sharing that travel lane on the way down? We just don't want to get, this street by no means meets our standards, and nor is it our intent to meet the standards. We just don't have, we don't want to, encroach on properties, nor do we want to encroach on the environment too much. So this is one of the questions. Which of those two concepts do you prefer? Segment 2 is pretty straightforward. There's a lot of existing sidewalks, and there's really maybe some provisions for some stormwater treatment and meandering sidewalk to some degree, but for the most part it's probably going to be a curb-tight sidewalk with bike lanes and travel lanes, no on-street parking. And segment 3, many of you are familiar with because you use this. I remember hearing when we did the Leland Road project a couple years ago, you didn't do enough there. That was the main comment, which I get, but we were trying to squeeze our dollars there as best we could. But should we, add more sidewalks, more bike lines? And I think the answer to that is all of the above. But it's a pretty straightforward segment. So again, same kind of concepts. The fourth segment is one that I think has a little more potential for some creativity. It's Myers Road. It's basically got ditches on either side of it. But I see the potential. Most of the homes sit quite a ways back from the road for more of a meandering, maybe a wider planter strip might really kind of be, you could make that a very comfortable pedestrian corridor by moving those sidewalks out away from the edge of the road. But we probably don't have the right of way for that, so we're trying to balance that. But I think even if the community were to kind of cry out for maybe something a little different than what we typically see, we'd like to hear that, because it might make sense to go after some more right of way in certain areas to be able to get those wider sidewalks or wider planter strips. White screen. What does that mean? No. This must be taking some time here. We are proposing a roundabout for the intersection of Warner Parrott, the main intersection, Leland, Warner Parrott, Central Point. In some of the feedback that we've got from the community, there's some that love them. Some people just hate those roundabouts. They're generally safer. The data shows that they're much safer. They're much less cost. And I'm sorry the slide isn't coming up, but
Try clicking it one more time just to see.
I can see it on my screen, part of it anyway. No, that's the prior slide. Give me a chance to choke a little here. Well, I think some of the other slides were about connectivity to the Gardner Middle School with sidewalks. And, just looking at some of the neighborhood path connectivity, say, through Singer Park instead of, right along the roadside. How do we get from Singer Park to Gardner Middle School, for instance? Is there a better way of doing that as opposed to putting them on Lynn Avenue? So the maps that aren't showing do show up in your on the website. There's the roundabout, so just hold on that one because that one was struggling to come up too. So I'll come back to the roundabout. But anyway, the maps online show just some of the options that we're looking at for connectivity to the school and connectivity to the neighborhood and some of the existing pathways that exist. This is it's kind of a hybrid. It's not a 2-lane roundabout. It's basically a single-lane roundabout with some extra lanes in particular movements, and it requires a fair amount of property right of way. The blue lines represent the existing right of way, so the dark gray represents travel lanes, the light gray represents sidewalks, and the green represents really a median, whether it be a planted median or a concrete median. So this is still concept, so maybe the diameter can get a little smaller, maybe we can do something a little different with some of the extra lanes, but the idea is to move our full build-out traffic count through there, and as you know, if you sit through that intersection at all, Central Point, we tend to get, Bob will probably attest, we get a fair amount of complaints about just that turn movement off of Warner Parrott onto Central Point, or stacking up in Central Point, not being able to get onto Warner Parrott. So we see some benefits here. Convincing the community may take some doing, but if you're again, if you could give us your opinion on that, that'd be helpful. Yeah, the last slide is really about the survey that we're asking you to go to the website. It's pretty easy to get to. It's on our main web page, so you really don't need this this web address to get there. Let's go to our main city website. You'll see that logo, and you can go in there and fill out the survey.
Yeah,
I got it.
I know I passed it out, and I've gotten
That's
a lot
right.
of feedback.
Did you send it out for me?
John, I have a question about the roundabout, of course. If you sit at that intersection and you see the volume at certain times of the day, is a single lane going to be able to have that flowing? I mean, I'm just concerned when you have 12 cars coming at each direction that some will turn, some will go straight. I'm just concerned. I mean, you're saying it's safer, but I guess I'm not understanding how a single lane is going to be able to handle that.
I don't know. It's magic.
Yeah. No, I've been through single lanes and I've been through double lanes, and I'm having a hard time understanding.
Yeah. So some of the options are going to be to allow some of that. So, for instance, there may be 2 lanes coming into this, but only 1 lane may be able to turn and go down Central Point. This one here, there may be 2 lanes, and 1 lane may be able to go down Leland Road, while the other lane will be able to, enter the circle. So there's a little bit of that kind of activity that's still allowed. So if you're at Leland Road and you want to turn on Warner Parrott, you may have a dedicated lane to be able to do that.
Well, on the same thing, since I'm
you're
with you, is when they turn and go around the Central Point, as I get there to take my left, you got somebody taking a right, stopping, and want to go into that mall there.
Little shopping center, yeah.
Yeah, and you don't know, I mean, that hangs you up one way or the other.
There are some details, design details with regard to driveways. This property is a challenge.
It is.
It's going to be a challenge for us no matter what we do. It's already a challenge.
Yeah.
So from a variety of perspective, it's going to be a challenge.
What is a roundabout? They have lights, don't they? Because they have them down.
No.
Roundabouts don't stop.
They don't stop.
It is continuous.
So so then I could have all these people going left and right and left.
Well, but the direction of flow is always right.
It's always right.
Always go right.
Yeah. So, for instance, if you want to go from Central Point down and make your left-hand turn here to get to Warner Parrott, you got to go through the roundabout.
Well, the only way I usually come is Warner Milling, so I have to go through the roundabout.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Warner Milling, you got to go into the circle and come down Central Point Road.
But then when I get there,
They're just
if
so
somebody's
much-
taking that left into that shopping center,
I'm not an expert on roundabouts, but I'll tell you, they're just so much more efficient. And once people get to know how to use them, they're aware of their other traffic.
Things
It's
right-hand
those people
turns.
that just struggle to drive anyway. That are not looking at anyone.
well, it's like though. I mean, I've seen them blow the lights actually too through there.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is you sit at that intersection. I've sat on Warner Parrott many times and watched no traffic come down Leland or Lynn. And it's not all about signal. The signals, you can't get them to run that efficiently. So,
Todd?
before I choke.
Sure.
Quick.
So, one comment, I have two questions. One comment, I was kind of initially a anti-roundabout person. I did research on it, and so now I'm a fan of roundabouts because they are proven to be more efficient and much safer than regular intersections. I wanted to say thanks to Public Works because the original concept didn't include Central Point Road, and I see they've added that, and that's a huge good job from my standpoint because I've seen how that traffic backs up at Central Point. So my question, changing the subject completely, is I've been in other locations where they have reflective lane markers, either with the reflective tape or the little reflectors they put in the road. And it's a really, I don't know if you've ever driven down one, it's a huge benefit because your headlights light up the lanes and it's from a
know where
safety
you're at.
standpoint.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know we don't have them here, and I was just kind of curious, have you ever considered that, or is that considered in the plan, or is it
Norway
really
has 'em.
expensive, or?
Well, I would say, when you say other places, would they?
Far away.
Far away places?
Well, like Northern California, where I used to live.
Oh, Northern California.
Yeah, because
That can be kind of far
Pretty
away.
far
depending
away.
you do, different states do different things.
Right.
So a lot of traffic safety is about consistency. But I know there's some different things coming on. We usually, traffic, whether it be signal controllers or signage, it's slow to come. I would say, though, that a lot of the striping techniques that I've also seen and am aware of can get fairly costly. And so, in Oregon, I think the focus has been on trying to maintain potholes and keep it safe to the degree, to the standard at which the community is willing to accept. So, how's that? Is that? I think there's some innovative stuff out there. It's just costly sometimes.
Yeah.
And whether raised, ODOT does some pretty cool stuff with profiled striping. So you'll see some of their stuff. It's actually a liquid thermoplastic that goes down, and sometimes it'll have a little raised bump to it. Just to get that contractor in town is, we pay the county to paint our streets. So we do put down some thermoplastic, but to bring in the contractors and the expense of doing profiled striping would be expensive.
Okay, that's kind of what I figured, but just kind of curious. Thank you.
Gary?
I guess I'd go on record as an opponent to the roundabout, but I did go online and I did some research, and it did talk about the safety issue, that it was safer for the roundabout, but because all the cars are moving and there's no head-on collisions. Didn't say, I haven't found out how many collisions there actually are, but the other ones are more head-on and.
There's more fatalities
Right.
than signalized intersection.
Right.
Yeah.
But
Well, if somebody drives the wrong way.
I'm going to do more research as far as the number of accidents. I mean, is it really going to speed up that intersection because you're going to have to yield anyway? So if you got 20 cars coming from both directions, it's going to take probably almost the same amount of time to get through that. But it would be an advantage
Well, I think you're
during
thinking,
the other times of the day.
You're thinking
not
about
during
today's
rush hour.
traffic loads, which already kind of back up, and there's not a very efficient intersection right there right now.
Well, yeah.
Imagine with growth, we're going to have growth, and we're building this for growth. And the idea, they do just move a lot more traffic, a lot more efficiently, and in a manner that's, if designed right, that's the other little key.
Right.
Is the roundabout big enough? Are the lanes wide enough?
Can't
Are
turn there.
is the signing right? Is the striping right? Those all matter. All
And
that
the
stuff.
other issue is, are we smart enough to drive through them?
I think we are. I think we are.
Okay, Steve?
John?
Oh, Rita, we got,
Well,
Steve Anderson is up next.
I'll get it.
My concern is pedestrian traffic at the intersections.
Steve, one of the things about roundabouts and pedestrians is if you wanted to get from Lynn Avenue up by the school to Leland Road, right now you'd hit a ped button and you'd walk across that street. In this scenario, you'd have to choose which direction you wanted to go, but you'd go to one of the see where the crosswalks show here. So if you wanted to get from here over to here, in this scenario, you'd come to here, you'd cross one lane of traffic, and you'd know where it was coming from. It wouldn't be coming both ways. You'd know it was coming from this direction, moving this direction. So as a pedestrian, you'd be able to walk across that, be in a pedestrian refuge, and then again look the other direction and walk one more. But you'd have to come around. So there is some distance changes, but they're still generally safer. Even with the signalized intersection, pedestrians have more opportunity to get hit by those left turners. And these roundabouts, again, the statistics show, the experts say they're safer and they move more traffic. So but you got to know how to use the roundabout. What we don't want you to do is walk from here to here to come look at some
That's what I
beautiful
fear.
piece of art and then come across. That's one reason why they don't always encourage artwork in a roundabout, but they do it.
That's
right?
nice.
They do it.
There was some nice ones
I know.
out there.
People
Another
aren't. I've heard
question,
that.
are there other intersection traffic control changes?
You mean besides this intersection?
Right.
Well,
In the concept plan.
in the concept plan, we've got ADA ramps. We're going to propose striping, but not major reconfiguration like this. So one proposal in the plan calls for a four-way stop at A.V. Davis, and I've heard mixed feelings about that. The other one is Sharman and Lynn, and eliminating Electric Avenue, but including a pedestrian activated signal that would get you across Lynn Avenue there. So.
Anything in Leland and is that Claremont?
Leland and no, you mean
The four-way stop
Yeah,
there?
Yeah.
Claremont. Nothing more than a four-way stop there.
Okay.
I guess the other thing I'll say is this is a plan, right? We need a plan before we can find funding and before we can figure out, how to piece it up. The plan helps us with both grant applications, but also if there's a developer that comes in and wants to build a police station over here, or something, we can exact out of them the at least the right of way, maybe the improvements. We typically wouldn't require a developer to do an intersection like this, but if it's along some of the other right of way, we'd probably want more right of way or frontage improvements to match whatever the plan says. So.
Along those lines, in the pedestrian crossing in the roundabout, do pedestrians have the right of way in a roundabout? So, again, you would be watching.
Yeah. And these pedestrians, they're not shown. We don't show striping in this layout, but they'd all be well marked.
Okay. Okay.
The open season for pedestrians.
No. And you only have to look for cars coming from the right.
That's right.
So that's an
Yeah.
advantage too.
Well, but as a driver, you need to be watching the intersection
Yeah.
too for passing people. Okay, cool. Did you want to stay up there, John, or did you want to?
Let me grab my list. If we're going to move into that stuff.
Yeah, it's his turn.
Hey, John.
I just wanted to mention a couple things. I don't know if any of you watched the news and got involved with or got concerned about the Portland water contamination event that happened a couple weeks ago. I was wondering how many of you were wondering if you should boil your water. No. None of you?
I thought they did a good job.
We know we have good water.
Yeah.
See, that surprised me because if you remember when we did the water survey a few years ago when we were doing our water master plan. A lot of people didn't know where they got their water from. And we got a lot of calls from people asking if they needed to boil their water. So
We know
I'm
that.
glad to hear you folks are informed now and know that your water isn't necessarily coming from Portland, and just because it's on Channel 8 or 6 or 2 or whoever. So, to go along with that, today we, Martin Montalvo and myself, we attended a exercise of all the regional water providers. And when I say all of them, mostly on the Clackamas County side of the world, to talk about, public messages in situations like that. When to order a boil water notice, how to deal with these kind of problems when they come up. So, again, we're trying to stay abreast of how best to deal with those kind of problems. Another thing that we're doing right now is every 3 years we have our streets surveyed in a photo survey. So there's a vehicle that drives through town, takes pictures of all our streets, every single one of our streets. It might be in your neighborhood. You might see the little vehicle. It's got cameras on it and taking pictures. And so they're not taking pictures of your kids. They're not really, checking up on you. They're really just taking a photo log that we will have, staff has accessible. In the past, we used to have it accessible to the public, but I think we had a little problem. It just didn't work quite right. But the idea is so that myself, for instance, if you call me and say, I've got a problem with my frontage or something's happening, we can pull that up right in and just kind of drive down your street. And we use it. We'll be using it for the open house for this project, the Leland Myers Road project. But just wanted you to know that was going. We do that every 3 years. So we do have a pretty good photo log. I think we've got 4 or 5 years now of 4 or 5 photo sets, and like I said, they're taken every 3 years, so 4 or 5 sets of those. Every street.
Every street. That must be fun.
Yeah. It's kind of like Google Earth. Google Earth, you can do that.
Yeah.
This kind of does that as well. Just to let you know, because we've got some questions about this, the elevator and the video that shows on the shaft of the elevator, because we've got more light, doesn't come on till really, really pretty late. So people are complaining about where's the video, and the bottom line is it just doesn't come on until dusk almost. So it's like 9 o'clock when it finally comes on. So, and then it really only lasts till I think 11. So it's not on for very many hours during the summer, but it's still on. I wrote this down and then I didn't put the date. Do you have the health and safety fair date?
Yes.
Okay, you're going over that. Just kind of close the loop on this. The Portland streetcar bridge removal that happened, the demo on the river, and then they removed it. They tugged it up onto the Oregon City side of the river and then dismantled it and hauled it away. In all that process, they did a pretty good job with tearing up the riverbank down near or where the bridge was at, and so that's all been restored. I don't know if you've walked on. Brian, I'm sure has.
They did a good job.
I think they really did a good job. Union Pacific just did a good job with that. I think it's fenced. The fencing that's down there now is temporary, just to keep people out of there so that the plants can get established. But just take a look at that because I think they did a good job with that. And then I wanted to talk about a meeting we had with TriMet, and there's more to come on this. But if you remember, there was an open house over at the Senior Center regarding the Portland-Milwaukee light rail and some of the changes that would go into effect when the Portland-Milwaukee light rail starts operation. And so they were telling us that, they started with a pretty conservative plan that basically said that you were, any Oregon City bus line that you hopped on to go to Portland. Right now there's a couple of direct, bus 99 goes straight to Portland. They were going to cut that and require you to get off at the Max line and hop on the train and then go into Portland. And since then, they've backed away from that. It sounds like they've kind of heard the public's cry for, no way, you're not going to do that. So their plan is to continue to utilize the 99, and it will still go to downtown. And they also, I didn't quite understand this, but they said something about bidirectional as opposed to one way as it is today. So it sounds like in the mornings when it goes from Oregon City to Portland,
It's express.
it's an express and it gets there. Now on their way back, they're also bringing people back, which I don't know if they didn't do that before or what, but they mentioned bi-directional, so I'm not exactly sure what that means. They also said it would be tied somewhat to the Selwood Bridge construction. So right now it goes down McLaughlin Boulevard all the way into Portland and then crosses probably the Ross Island Bridge, I'm guessing, or Fremont. But they'll be using the Selwood Bridge in the future for that. So the route will be a little bit different, and it'll be a little bit longer. But the other good news is, and this is for those people that live up in, I guess it's Bob, up in Park Place, the 28 and the 34 is what services Park Place. Is that correct?
I'm not familiar with the numbers.
Okay, well, I think that's the one, that's what I wrote down. Clackamas Heights Service, their plan is to run that about twice as much as they do now. And so they said, the number I wrote down was 35 minutes, every 35 minutes, Monday through Friday, and I don't know what the range of the hours is, but I guess my information is just my own notes. So their intent is to have more public involvement. They've scheduled July 22nd as yet another community meeting on this topic, so keep that in mind. And they'll be they're doing a presentation to the Transportation Advisory Committee on at the June meeting. So if you're interested in that, I'd either suggest you come or listen to the. I guess we've got that on video.
I thought somebody sent us something on it.
They may have.
Yeah.
I kind of lose track of all the things we send out of here, but it's possible. Katie probably did something like that. And I think that's it.
Thank you.
Unless you got questions.
Steve, did you have a question for John
Oh,
on this, or
you
that was
just
before?
didn't take me off the list.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
All right.
Thank you.
I don't see Amber. Karen, did she have something?
That's
for you?
what you need for your throat.
So Amber couldn't be here tonight, but she did send some information with some dates and some upcoming events that she wanted us to be aware of. So that is coming around now. You will see that, and that's pretty much, they're pretty self-explanatory. It's no report or anything. It's just the dates and information.
Okay. Moving on, the approval of minutes from our last meeting. Did everyone have a chance to look over them? Did anybody have corrections? Rita?
On the part where you just asked people's comments, I had said that the mayor had come to our last meeting, and then the rest of that sentence didn't apply to McLaughlin neighborhood. It says elections are coming on the 15th and presentation for proposed Alzheimer's
Right,
care
that's
center on
South End.
End. So
I have no correction.
So that must have been Mary Ann. From that point. Yeah. Okay, Bob?
In page 2, the round table, the last two lines, I reported it should be land use issue instead of last use.
Right. We caught that one. And then Karen's, Fred Meyer helped out at their site, didn't hold up their site. Any other corrections to the minutes?
Good thing you got a new
Bill?
job.
Yeah.
I think line 3 is supposed to read probably OCPW, not OCPD.
Oh, ask OCPW. I'm back on that. Number 3. Yeah, Amy was having a hard day this
Maybe
day.
I got a promotion, huh?
Or maybe the D is for demotion.
Could that be?
All right, any other corrections? Does anyone want to make a motion to
Make a motion to approve the minutes as amended?
second, someone?
Second.
Todd and Bob?
Tony? Linda? Dennis? Amy,
Aye.
Kathy,
Abstain.
Tom, which is not here, sorry. Steve,
Aye.
Faith, Rita,
Aye.
Kurt,
Aye.
Bob,
Aye.
Barbara,
Aye.
Harris,
Aye.
Karen,
Aye.
Bill, Gary,
Aye.
Todd,
Aye.
Brian.
Aye.
Okay, it passes with one abstention.
Just a quick note, the city recorders held a meeting recently, and I know that, remember Brian was there and Dennis was there, I don't remember if anybody else was there. But one of the things we learned about when a motion is made, that we should not, as members, abstain. That should happen so rarely, we shouldn't hardly even know it. So if, and I know that we've been using it in the past, this is a question we came up with, well, what if we weren't at the meeting? We get the minutes, and it's televised. And they directed us that we should, as part of our responsibility, we should watch the meetings that we miss, and we should look at the minutes, so that we really shouldn't be abstaining even if we didn't. And that was something that I learned. I didn't know that either.
Well, are they paying the bill? Because I'm on dial-up, but I'm not going any more money because I'm on a budget.
I'm not going to judge that. I'm just letting you know what we learned, that it was that we really shouldn't
I'd still
abstain.
be sitting there waiting for it to come up.
You can go to the library. You can ride your bike.
There you go.
Okay.
Do the roundabout.
That was just a point of interest. I thought we found that was one of the things that came out of it. Okay, moving on. Citizen comments. Looks like, just reminding you that you have 3 minutes, and reminding the members that this is their comments. This isn't an interaction period. And we will first have Howard Post and Ken Basinger. Welcome back.
My name's Howard Post. I'm from Kanema. There's some problem about we had with our election in Kanema, the last election and the present election. I want to read you 3 paragraphs from the bylaws of Kanema Neighborhood Association. There's a copy of the announcement, a copy of the minutes, a copy of the people there, accordingly. Article 4, Section 1 says, officers shall be elected at the annual meeting for a term of 2 years and shall perform the following duties. Number 1. Article 7, Section 1, the annual general meeting for the election of officers and approval of the budget shall be held the second Thursday of November at a place by the steering committee. Article 8, Section 4, regular election of officers shall be held at the annual November meeting. Special elections may be held at any regular meeting for the purpose of filling vacancies. We had an election, we had the election of officers, so therefore there was no vacancies. This is what the bylaws say. Membership is notified the special election, blah, blah, blah. So my question is, I watched the last meeting on the thing, and there was some different opinion. This is our bylaws. This is what the bylaws say. I mean, you either have the bylaws or you don't have the bylaws. So there's some conflicts of personalities. There was some question about the officers. I sent a letter to Katie in February, an email, saying here's our slate of officers. At the meeting, as you read the minutes, nobody was going to run. So I made a motion to carry on with the same officers we had. And that was seconded, and that was voted on by the quorum. A quorum means whoever's there. Some of the people at the meeting left early and said they wasn't there. Well, I'm not going to argue the point. I had some questions about the minutes, so I went around to half a dozen different people and said, what do you remember of this meeting? And they pretty much concurred the way it was. So the bylaws speak very clearly to it. There was some comment about we should try to resolve this. I met with Mr. Basinger, saying there's a lot of people really upset about this, and I think what we should do is just leave it like it is till the next November election
and then hold the new meeting, I'm sorry. But it's very specific, says the officers are elected for every 2 years, so, you know. So I think that negates the election, but that's up to you guys. All I ask is just read the bylaws and see what it says. That's all I have. Is there any question? But that's all I have to say.
Okay. Ken? And Michael, you're next on the, could you come up and, so we can move through?
I'm
Welcome
Ken
back.
Basinger. I'm a resident of Kenema and one way or another the treasurer of the neighborhood association. I want to say first that I've worked with Howard. I've known Howard for probably 15 years, and we've worked together as officers in the neighborhood association for at least 12 of those 15 years. And we've always got along well. I appreciate the work that Howard's done for the neighborhood association, and we've rarely been in disagreement with any of this. So I'm taken aback by all of this, and I want to ask, I feel it's totally inappropriate to bring this and lay it on your doorstep. As we were instructed at the last CIC meeting, there's a grievance procedure within the neighborhood association. We've received no complaints from anybody other than here. And I think it's totally inappropriate to bring this to your doorstep, and I'd like to ask you right now to just dismiss it. If Howard or anybody else has an issue with the way we've done business in the neighborhood association, then it should be solved within the neighborhood association. That's exactly what we were instructed to do at the last meeting here. And following that meeting, we've had no communication from any of the people who made the complaints, despite the fact that we've made multiple attempts to communicate with them, and we've gone so far as to hold a neighborhood open house, inviting all of the members of the neighborhood down to the new Feckin brewery, and we had a very enjoyable, pleasant afternoon. Nobody came to complain that our elections were unfair. So I'm going to ask you, before I comment on anything Howard said, to just leave it to us.
Okay.
Dismiss it.
I've heard you.
Okay.
I'm going to take all the comments before I make my comment.
I would like then to reserve the opportunity to speak in response to the things that Howard had to say, if in fact we're going to go forward with this here.
Okay. Gotcha. Michael? And Paul, could you come up while he's speaking?
Michael Berman, Kenema, business owner, Two Rivers, elected vice chair, CIC. My term, confusingly, would be up in November. It's kind of fun to sit on this side of the bench. I was invited to the CIC by Lloyd Purdy almost 4 years ago this summer, and have attended many, many meetings. I think anybody that would come to the CIC would recognize me and know who I am. I want to read something just quickly. Now, we want to appreciate, because I did spend a lot of time on that side of the bench, and thank you for the phone calls. This came from one of the members, and just says, "Hi, Michael." It was an email. I have to say I was nonplussed when the people were presenting on what happened in your neighborhood association. I was very surprised at your removal because I have always felt you have been a positive force with great ideas and only the interests of improving our city in mind. I did want to mention that when you stepped out of the meeting, someone was saying that you never attended the neighborhood association meetings. I can't say for sure who said that, but I did not feel it was fair that it was said when you were not in the meeting area. I thought you should know that. I received several phone calls in the same vein as that. I do hope that things work out, and want to let you know that I think you have been a great asset to the CIC. And I did receive some other phone calls and a couple of visits at my business on Main Street, and thank you all who expressed that interest. I disagree with Mr. Basinger on his request for dismissal. I think that it's awkward when there were so many discrepancies with everything that happened with the voting in the meetings. We do have some personality issues. We have a split neighborhood. We have a historic neighborhood. We have a neighborhood with new homes. We have a home that has caused quite a bit of controversy. The home is not exactly historic, although it was built before a lot of our citizens were born. So it was built in the 70s by Howard Clemson, who actually went to Kanema grade school. So there is some historic aspects to this home. And I understand what they did. I don't, I think that I don't want to get. I only have a minute left, probably. But the thing in question was, and there's we're butting heads with personalities of what we're doing in this neighborhood, and I would really like to see the CIC address this, because we can't take a grievance to a grievance committee who we have a grievance with. It doesn't really work that way. A third party would be probably appreciable. I would also recommend that I think that all parties should just back off, let some new blood come in, and go on with a new vote. Our treasurer's been a treasurer for over 6 years. It's just a treasurer job. It's not that great. It's not that important. Everything we do is we're just neighbors in the CIC. Our neighborhoods are just neighborhoods. It's not the United Nations. We really need to take it down a notch. I do believe that because of the personality conflicts, that all parties should probably just back off. There's a lot of neighbors in Kanema, and we should probably have a new vote, simply because of multiple discrepancies, both with our bylaws, both with Robert's rules. I could go on it, but I feel really adamant about that.
Okay.
And that's, really probably all I have to say.
Thank you, Michael. Paul?
Hi. Paul Edgar, Kanema. Here's petitions. One of them is to CIC. One of them is to the Kanema neighborhood. 19 signatures. 10 is required to have this brought before you or brought before the neighborhood association. What this tells you is that there are a lot of people, when they had this so-called open house, they didn't want to be involved or communicate with the people. They didn't. They would prefer to be someplace else. But 19 people said that with written signatures, that they felt that this election that happened and what happened, that the bylaws were violated, that the understandings of what was here, they wanted to, they just believed that, like what Howard said, we had an election last November to keep the status quo. No one showed up. We did what we were supposed to do. But now personalities come into play where they say, well, we want to redo this. We want to change the direction of Kanema. And a lot of it goes back, and honestly, I'm a preservationist. I believe in historic preservation. And Kanema is the only nationally registered historic district in all of Clackamas County. And when you get into the fights of trying to help and protect and go to all of the HRB meetings and the Planning Commission meetings and stuff like this, yeah, you do step on some toes. But what we're really talking about is Kanema and protecting this National Register Historic District. And we have a neighborhood association, we have bylaws, and the bylaws were not followed through. We have 19 signatures right here, one directly to the CIC and one to the neighborhood. And we just think that this needs to be reviewed at a high level. These 19 signatures require some action by the CIC, and we'd like to see that happen. Thank you.
Okay. I want to help you understand your bylaws. I want to follow up on what... Okay. I want to follow up on what Alice, as the chair last month, said. Those signatures that you got, what you need to do, and according to your bylaws, you need 10. You only need 10, like you have 19, you say, but what you need is 10 people to call a special meeting. That, then you can, according to your bylaws, you can then you need the special meeting, and it needs to clearly state what the grievance is. And then within 7 days, you have to give 7 days notice, and then you can hold a special meeting, and with that grievance, then you can determine by a vote how you're going to proceed. So that would look like you take a vote. Do we want to clean up our election and do it over, or however you want to handle it? Until that has happened, until you have gone to and had a special meeting, the CIC is not going to step in, because our grievance procedure states first that you need to do according to your bylaws. Now, if you have that special meeting and you're not happy, then you're welcome to send a grievance in writing, not just coming forward and talking. We need a grievance in writing that asks for us to step in and help. Now, not to step in and call for an election, not to step in and make a decision, but to step in and help mediate. At that point, our procedures here for the CIC is that if you look at our bylaws, 5 names will be drawn, and that will form a grievance committee. If any of those 5 people have an interest in Kenema, then, or personality that they have a special interest, then they would need to recluse themselves, and we would choose somebody else. And then though that grievance committee meets separately, and there's a timeline to follow for the grievance to be looked at. It is not something that the CIC as a whole is responsible for. Our bylaws clearly show how we are to help the neighborhood associations work through their problems, but it was never, according to the bylaws, the intent for us to just step in. Just like when we had problems here on the CIC, the city didn't say, okay, this is what you have to do. We asked the attorney to come help us because we weren't convinced that we could do it ourselves. Kind of the same way that a grievance committee could help take that into force. But we're, as a body, not going to, we can't, that's not how this is going to be handled, and it's not according to our bylaws. So that being said, I feel like we're in the same place we were last month. You've gone out and you've found the people that are interested, but now you need to take it to the steps that your bylaws show how to handle it. And that has no bearing on current officers deciding if they want to do it or old officers deciding if they want to do it. This is just members of the community saying we want to hold a special meeting, and this is the grievance. Make sure you spell out what you want to see happen at that special meeting so that you have the 7 days notice, everybody notified. Katie can help you make sure that that gets done in the way it has to be done according to the legal procedures. But that's the steps you're going to need to take before that we can have our next CIC meeting. Michael?
Oh, sorry, will you come to the mic? Will you come to the mic? Sorry. I just want to make sure we get you on.
I appreciate what you said, and I think that seems to be the right step. However, that has ramifications for every neighborhood. In our neighborhood right now, we have officers that I don't personally recognize, but in a typical situation, you would have officers that you recognize. So are you telling us that every neighborhood could just call for special meetings for grievances?
You need to look at your bylaws and how they read.
I think
the Kenema bylaws read that if there is any grievance, that a special meeting can be held and then a majority vote answers that grievance. That's how your bylaws read.
I'm fine with that, and I hope that's the direction we take, and I appreciate your instructions, but I do feel like that may be opening a door to a lot of special meetings. It may. It may not.
Yeah. You're right. Kind of like, but if you remember when the CIC had that issue and we wanted to have a special meeting, once we really thought about it, it calmed down and we were able to take care of it at our next meeting, and we slowed the process down. I think part of that was because of the timing. It was at Christmas time, but those things, yes, it can happen. Okay. But I thank you that you're passionate about this. We do care. I know that the other members of the CIC, we do care because we're all one big family. We're all citizens. We're all members of the community just trying to help each other. And I want to see this done positively, not, I don't want it to be a he said, she said. Let's pull together and get this taken care of. Okay. Moving on our agenda to unfinished business. Brian, can you update us where we're at on the nominating committee so far?
Oh, boy.
Yeah, 3 of us went ahead as instructed and called a variety of the members. And we only have a candidate for the vice chair position.
Nobody for secretary.
We do not have a candidate that's volunteered to run for secretary. And what I'd like to do is have Amy describe what a secretary is. In this case, so that everybody, anyone who might be holding back from running for that knows exactly what it requires. So could you?
Yes, absolutely. It's not as scary as you think. I mean, I remember no one would run for secretary when I got nominated either. And I think part of that was just the thought of having to be a secretary scares people. But really, it's pretty simple. You take notes during the meeting. You don't have to write down every single thing that's said. This meeting is being recorded. So your basic goal is to get the gist, to get the big points. You can look back through and see, it can be as simple as you want to make it, as long as you get, trying to get the feeling and what the most important thing is. You don't have to have all of the details. That's why we have the meetings recorded. Katie is a godsend. She will send you the votes. She will send you the attendance sheets, so you don't have to try to remember what the motion was or who voted for what. She will send you that, and you just have to include those. We have a template that's already made, so it's just a matter of cutting and pasting from month to month who was here or who wasn't here, keeping the Excel spreadsheet, and the chair and the vice chair will help keep track if people are vacant, or not vacant, if they're not here, if they're absent, and we need to find out what's going on with them, making sure that we're current. But so really, it's part of it is just being a member of the 3-person board, so that we make sure that when we're planning the agenda, we're getting a good feedback from a good group. If we don't have 3 people, it's really hard. And they're not going to let Katie take minutes. They're going to pull her away, and they're going to say, do everything on your own if we push too hard. So we really need somebody to step up. Now, I did have a question. This has come up because the way that this is my first meeting here, and if we do the way it's supposed to be, this is June. We're getting names. We would vote in July, and so in August it would take effect. According to our bylaws, we start again the process in October. If that's something that we want to look at and say, okay, this is only going to be, do we want to vote a new secretary and a vice chair in for 3 months and then start all over, or do we want to do it for a little over 2 years? That's something that we need to talk about and make sure is clearly outlined how you want that to look. Because we didn't talk about that when I was voted in. So that's something to think about, Katie.
One suggestion might be, did you say there was only one person that you got for vice chair?
Yes, Karen Morey.
Okay. Since it is just a very short term, it's not like a full term, it's not full 2 years, and we will be doing this again in October, November, December area. It might be a suggestion to take a vote on just having, the one person, and having people volunteer to do it, having like this one person volunteer to do it, having one person volunteer to do the secretary. Maybe Barbara wants to continue to do it through this term, and then we vote on that they're going to be the person until the end of the term, and then have the new elections and do the full meal deal then.
So we're
open to comments.
Open to comments, okay. But basically, we're just trying to fill through November?
Well, that's up to you. Do you want to fill through November, or do you want to do a full election? Is someone willing to step up? Anyone else want to step up as vice chair or as secretary?
Fill in until the end.
As we're already seeing, if you want to start causing problems in an organization, start with elections. We have a process to replace or to fill a vacancy. We have a process for elections. My suggestion would be we follow the process and then see where we are in October and who's willing to run. If no one runs for secretary, then as chair, you can ask someone to step up each month to take the minutes. That's not really the secretary, you're just asking someone to take the minutes. But I would suggest we follow our bylaws on elections, even if it is just for a few months.
Okay.
Steve?
I was not contacted by phone in the poll that he described, and I wish to run for vice chair.
Okay.
Okay.
Kathy?
Oh, well, I was thinking maybe, has anybody thought of it and they're willing to step up now?
Right.
For the secretary.
According to our bylaws, we do
Yeah, so
open it up. So anyone who wasn't able to be reached by phone, or even if you were and you've changed your mind, now is the time that you're able to nominate yourself or someone else if they're willing for the vice chair and the secretary position. So are there anybody willing to step up for the next few months? Kurt?
I can do it.
Which one?
Which one?
I can do the secretary.
Okay. I was trial by fire too. I wasn't here long when I was secretary. All right, anyone else want to put their name in the hat for vice chair or secretary? Okay. I would ask from the three of you if you would please just write up a little blurb about yourself and kind of who you are and what you see the CIC as, and send that in to Katie, and she can compile that so that we have it at before our next meeting, so that when we vote, we've been able to read that.
I'll recycle.
Yeah, I can reuse. I can send you, Kurt, if you didn't already get. I think you were on the email list from the previous election, so you kind of saw what the other candidates had wrote up about themselves. But I could send that to you if you want to see.
For months.
Okay.
So then we'll be voting next month.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
Or next meeting. It's not.
All right, moving on to new business. The CIC booth at upcoming events. We've discussed this throughout the year. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I seem to remember that we said that we thought having a booth at the farmer's market wasn't the best idea because you have so many people come from other cities. Was that just
it was. I thought it was a good idea.
at the farmer market?
The farmers market. We had one there too. Yeah. And the health fair.
Well,
the health fair was good, but
the National Night Out, which is August 5th, we
National
definitely
Night Out
wanted
we
to
did.
do that,
Yeah.
and we definitely wanted to do the safety fair. It seemed like we were having a hard time getting commitments at the farmers
let's
market,
drop
and people were coming.
farmers
So,
market. That's
if
fine.
that's what I want to say. Does anybody have the firm? I want to do this at the farmer market. I'll head it up. I'll have a booth. I'll make sure it gets there. Oh wait, did I scare everybody?
The health fair. The health fair was a really good one.
Okay, so the National Night Out is August 5th. That is a Tuesday night, I believe. It's this year. It's going to be held at the Mount Pleasant School location, the future home of the police department. I think that would be a great place to have a booth. I will be out of town that week, so I need someone willing to head that up. I think we need to probably have a new map made, so we need to, whatever we need to do to make sure that that happens, if we have to vote to spend the money or however we need to do it, or
I can just print a new map, but do we want to go ahead and get that laminated this time?
what do you,
Yes.
those that
We're
were
at the end,
there,
and
I
we
think
have
that
some
was-
funds available, so we could do that.
Okay.
Okay.
Because if you don't, it gets all
Okay,
tore up.
so Tuesday night, August 5th. Is anyone able, basically, I think it's, somebody just needs to have a shade that they can stick up, a table. I don't remember, Faith, what all did it entail?
Yeah, I made a little list here, and Alice sent me a long note, and I forgot to print it out and bring it. But basically, you need the map, a stand, a table, and a canopy, and brochures. Those 5 things, she said. And she said, we need to tell you to make a new map, and it has to be laminated because it gets all ripped up if you don't. And
we have a banner. We had a banner that went across the top.
I made that.
Okay.
I can make that too,
you-
and the
yeah, 'cause
brochures.
it got tore up too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is the
'cause-
stand,
'cause it
is
got
that
wet.
something that was
The
somebody
maps-
personally
there was a
had,
stand
or
that
did
the
that-
map
Oh, I don't know about the stand.
Yeah, it was like.
Oh,
a
I don't know.
missile.
It must have been someone's personal.
And they got the canopy from the McLaughlin neighborhood. And so we have to find out if that's where we get the canopy again.
Okay.
And the canopy with weights. And the table was Alice's. So I don't know where to get a table, because I don't have a table that size.
Just a fold-up plastic.
I can provide the table and the canopy, and I
Okay.
live over in Crest, so. it's
Can
not
you
very
be
far
there
from-
that night?
That doesn't mean I can be there, though. I
Oh,
can be
okay.
there probably for part of the time. I always have to have another caretaker to be with my wife, so that's my issue.
Oh,
But
canopy.
I can.
Do you have weights for your canopy too?
You mean in case it's like a bounce house issue?
Well, they, with wind
Blowing
and,
They
across
they
the place.
require them. It's so it won't blow away.
Oh.
But they just hang
No,
down
mine-
on the
yeah,
bars.
no, mine is not a commercial stuff.
I don't know at the National Night Out if they require that like they did at the
health
fair. If you have,
Makes sense.
if you have,
I don't know, even if it's not
McLaughlin.
I mean,
neighborhood,
yeah, but I'm
somebody-
saying we could have, if somebody had 4 cinder blocks that you could, we could do it a little different than.
It doesn't have to be the tube weights.
Right, it doesn't have to be the 2 weights, but it should be something. Okay, so I guess I'm looking for someone, Harris can help set up. Gary?
I got cinder blocks.
Okay. So can you help set up that night?
What time is it?
I took my calendar, probably could.
Is it 5 to 7 or 5 to?
I'll have to look it up.
We'll have
What time is it?
we'll verify, yeah, we'll have
I
to
think
probably
it's,
verify that.
I think it starts at 6. doesn't it?
Date or something. I can help out. I don't want to do it all by myself. but-
Okay.
And I did the health fair, and I really enjoyed that last
Yeah.
year. So I'll do the health fair. And if we want to forget the farmers market, that's cool. Because the health fair is really local
Yeah, that's the
people.
next one. Check your calendars. I'll be asking next month. That is Saturday, September 20th. Isn't
I
it?
have Saturday, September 13th.
Oh, they move it up a week?
Yeah, and that
Okay.
we have to let them know that we're going to have a booth there by July 1st.
Oh, well, then we can't do it. Okay, so we need
No,
to
no,
know.
no, we can.
No, I mean,
Can
we
do it.
need to decide tonight if we
Yeah.
want to do it, and then next month we can finalize the plans.
Yeah, and if we just have a couple of people, I mean, it's a lot of fun. I'll tell you.
pretty sure
You
I
meet a
can
lot
be
of
there at
people,
that
and
one.
you get them excited about it, and especially with looking at the map, they go, "Oh, I live here. Oh, I'm in this neighborhood." And I mean, it's just And then you have brochures that she makes up and you pass.
And then I'm going to go back to the National Night Out really quick. National Night Out is 5:30 to 8:30.
Okay,
August
so
5th.
5:30 to 8:30. So we would do we need to fill out a form or just let Chris Wadsworth know?
Just let Chris know.
Okay, so is that something that
I can let her
you
know.
can let her know?
Mhm.
And then for the
Oh, okay.
13th, is there a form that we
There
have
is
to-
a form, and I do have it, and I can fill that out and send it
Okay.
in if we decide tonight that that's
Okay.
a
Those
go.
2 events, that's enough.
Do you have the times on the safety fair?
I do.
Kim had her.
I'm not sure. I'm
Yeah,
not,
Kim, did you get
I'll have to
Kim
look
who's
that.
willing to help? Or Linda, why do I call you?
Linda.
I just want to, your name just, sorry. So were you able to you want to help take down, come at the middle? What were you thinking?
I'll stay and help take down.
Okay. Okay. So we'll verify next month if you check that if Harrison, Gary can help set up and then be there part of the time, and Linda, and it would be great if another person could help be there the second half.
The whole time.
Okay, Faith will be there.
Both
Okay.
events.
Okay. And then, yeah,
I enjoyed that.
Yeah. I definitely will help with the safety fair. That's fun. Okay. For future goals and direction of the CIC, due to the time, I'm going to table that until next month. I've got some
Yeah.
ideas that
Yeah,
we
it's
wanted
after
to
mine.
discuss there, but in the interest of time. Now, upcoming meeting cancellations, we do need to cancel our September meeting. It, once again, falls on Labor Day, and this building will be closed. There was a question if we wanted to cancel any of the other meetings
In the summer?
because of summer, depending on people's schedules, if there was going to be a lot of people. I don't like to really cancel meetings because it's a long time in between, but if there was going to be an overwhelming amount of people gone in August,
You know, if you can get people not to come to this meeting, but go to the National Night Out and the.
Yeah,
Just
I
trying to get
personally will be
volunteers.
gone in August, so whoever is the vice chair will need to plan to be here for sure that night if we have a meeting that August 4th, because I will be gone and they will need to run that meeting. I'm a trial by fire.
And I'll probably be gone for the July meeting, so there might be someone in my place, John or someone else.
Okay. So is there any concerns or motions, or you want to go ahead and just still have July and August?
Yeah.
Keep on, keeping on, trucking on. Okay. All right. So just note that we will be canceling September due to Labor Day.
December 2, right? So we don't?
Not always.
Oh.
Okay. Committee reports. That's something that will be postponed and discussed at our next meeting. And then roundtable, due to the time, again, if you have something to say, please share it. But if you don't, feel free to pass. And we will start with Dennis.
Pass.
I'm next.
Linda.
Oh, Linda, speak into the mic, please. Yeah, thank you.
We
Come
had
chase you
a
down.
great get-together at the little brew pub. We probably had between 30 and 40 people who came. Everyone was invited with flyers to come through here. Good response. Some people did not know we had a neighborhood association. Others were thrilled that we'd had an election and we had a different flavor for it, and they would start coming to the meetings again. So it was just a great informal get-together we had. Very well received in the neighborhood.
Hey, Rita.
We're going to have snow cones at the concerts in the park, and they will be down at the Trails End this year. And I think that's all.
Is that at every concert in the park?
Every
you have?
concert
Yes.
we have
No.
snow cones, yeah, and we've been able to store our things down there because they're quite hard to move around every time. So that'll be an
Oh,
advantage.
that's nice. Okay. Kurt?
Pass.
Steve?
Allendale Steering Committee, tomorrow, a week from tomorrow, the 10th, and that'll be at
Mazatlan.
Mazatlan Restaurant.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Pass.
Brian?
Yeah, I'll pass too.
Kathy?
We have our meeting in July. I'm not sure the date, but it's the third Thursday in July. And I've got to plug Phyllis Stocking, Philahart. I don't care.
You can do that.
The community, Fred Myers, choose Phyllis Stocking, Philahart. Link it up to Phyllis Stocking because we get money then. And that really, really helps because it's hard fundraising and making money for 3,300 socks. And you figure shampoos are $1, toothpaste is $1 if you go to the dollar store. There goes our fund. So if you link it to Phyllis Stocking, Philahart, it will help us out immensely. And if you would like our calendar of events, we have concert in the park on the July 17th, Phyllis Stocking volunteers open house to come see. It's July 26th. December 4th is the date it's been held for the taste because we're going back to do the taste again, yes. And let's see, and we're being sponsored by BCT at the Backyard Bash Saturday, July 12th, and BCT Holiday Craft Saturday, November 15th, and I have little flyers if you want to keep it, put it on. And whatever money they share between us and another charity. So hopefully.
Kathy,
if
do you
don't know
have a
about it-
website that you can read for those watching if they want to find this information?
It's right on the bottom.
PhyllisStocking.org.
Yeah.
Oh.
www.info@phyllisstocking.org.
Okay.
So, and actually, it's in the Trail News.
Oh, perfect.
So, here,
Somebody else need one of those.
so,
Okay. Do you have anything else, Kathy?
no.
Bob?
Pass.
I'll pass.
We had our general meeting, Park Place neighborhood, on May 19th, and It was fairly well attended. The main topic of conversation was the zoning changes from 10 to 6 to 8 and then now to 8. And one of the big concerns that people in the audience had was an issue that came up at the Planning Commission meeting on May 12th. Tony Conkle left the meeting. He's the planning commissioner, planning leader. And he left the meeting in the middle of a discussion, and then he came back and asked the developer to step outside with him, which the developer did. And this was an open hearing, so this was of a concern. So I've been asked by these people in our city to share this with you. And I did write to Tony, and I asked him for an explanation, and he wrote back, but they did not accept his explanation because there was really nothing he couldn't have said from where he was sitting. So the issue goes on, and I'm just doing my CIC thing. It's a bit awkward, but we're still working on the issue. We're still going to be bringing it back to the Planning Commission. So that's all I have. Bob?
Well, I took the big step. Last Wednesday, I announced my candidacy for mayor of
Yay.
Oregon City. So my hat is in the ring.
That's it?
Vote for Bob. Well, I can't. I don't think this is the place to start candidacy.
No, I just meant usually you have a lot more to report.
Oh, no, Barbara took care of the Park Place.
Oh, I get it.
Yeah.
I have nothing.
I just wanted to let you know that I have the volunteer appreciation invitations for the dinner type thing that we put on at the Concerts in the Park every summer. This year, the volunteer appreciation dinner and concert is going to be the Thursday, August 14th at 5:30, and it's going to be held at the end of the Oregon Trail. I believe that's where all of the concerts in the park are held this year. And I have the invitations tonight, but I think that I'll wait a little bit closer to the date so that you don't forget, because you actually have to bring the sticker that's on there to get the meal for free. So I think I'll wait to pass these out. Maybe at the July meeting, I'll have them pass them out to you guys so you don't forget to keep that until the August 14th date. That's it. Thank you.
Karen?
Just take note on Amber's handout. If you're a small business, an employer, an employee, somebody interested in more information on healthcare, the Wednesday morning Good Morning Oregon City at the Providence Willamette Falls Community Center is open to the public. It will be a panel of 4 speakers on medical insurance. So come join us if you want to hear a panel and kind of get the first-hand knowledge. That's it.
Well, that's this Wednesday.
I'm going to check.
I'll
pass.
Pass.
Okay. Then the meeting is adjourned at 9:14.
Yay! Good.